Hey, my name is Kang like Kangaroo, and in this video, I'm going to be giving you 3 reasons why you should consider getting your green card. Just as a quick reminder, I'm not an immigration lawyer, I'm just a dude with a camera, so if you're serious about immigrating to the US, please go talk to an immigration lawyer, they're definitely worth the money. Now, reason number 1, and the biggest reason, has all to do with work and flexibility. So if you're in the US on a work visa like the H-1B or the L-1, or what I'm particularly familiar with, the TN visa, you are pretty limited in terms of what you can do for work. When you come to the US on one of these visas, you are tied to your employer, not only for, your income, but also for your legal status in the US. That means if anything goes wrong at work, like, you take down prod one too many times and they're like, all right, we're gonna fire you, or you get laid off, you have like 60 days to leave the country. On top of that, since your income is tied to your employer, you're not allowed to have any other jobs, any other side incomes. So that means no door dashing on the side, no Uber Eats on the side, and even that app that you thought about making, you could not monetize it. Now, it's hard to say all of these things as blanket statements because I know that there's ways around this. There has to be workarounds, but I think in general, we can say that being in the US on a work visa limits your options when it comes to work. Now, a big reason why people want to get their green card is that it provides flexibility and it provides stability. Once you get your green card, you become a permanent resident, and all these work limitations are like magically lifted. Now, once the work floodgates open, it really opens the door for people who are very ambitious and want to explore some type of entrepreneurship, whether that's like, starting your own business, becoming a co-founder of a startup, monetizing an app or a service, consulting on the side, or even being like overemployed with 5 jobs to reach FIRE in 5 years. But let's say that you're not into the whole entire hustle culture thing, which I totally get. The green card still has the added perk of giving you a ton of work flexibility and also opens up your job pool to many more jobs. Let's say, for example, right now you're a software engineer, but you really want to try doing, UX design. Now, doing a switch like this on a TN visa is probably going to be pretty difficult because the TN visa is tied directly to your degree. But once you get your green card, doing a switch like this is fair game and completely fine. The only caveat that really comes to my mind are companies that require some sort of security clearance, like working at NASA, working at SpaceX, or some defense companies. And for me, this is one of the big reasons why I would personally get my green card. I think the idea of exploring side hustles and continuing to grow my YouTube channel would be a big driver in pushing me towards getting my green card. The second big reason has all to do with living in the US long term. Now, if you want to become a US citizen, the first step in the process is becoming a permanent resident, or what most people call it, a green card holder. Now, for a lot of people outside of developed nations, getting a green card and fully immigrating to the US seems like a no-brainer because I think for a lot of these situations, the life that they would have in the US is going to be a much higher quality than the life that they would have back at home. But if I'm being honest, the initial thought of coming to the US and becoming a permanent resident has never really been a big driver for me to get my green card. I've been very lucky and privileged to be born in Canada, which is very similar to the US in most aspects. Culturally, Canada and the US are very similar. We speak the same language. Our passports are just as strong, and we have very similar standards of living, etc., etc. But from what I've been hearing from my friends and family, the cost of living crisis in Canada just keeps getting worse. And this isn't just anecdotal, there's hard evidence to back this up. If we look at this chart, it shows the average income, what they can qualify for, and what the average cost of a home in Canada is across the major cities, and is insane. If you look at the Canada average, the median household income is $75,000, and the average house price is $750,000, which is ridiculous. And it gets even worse when we look at the major cities where the high-paying jobs are, like Toronto or Vancouver. Now, this is not new. In recent times, housing in Canada has been very unaffordable, but the cost of living crisis has gotten so bad now that even groceries are very expensive. As of February 2023, grocery prices has rose 10.6% year over year, which is more than double the inflation rate of 5.2%. And this was in 2023. On top of that, the Canadian job market is much weaker than it is in the US, and the wages have stagnated and not kept up with inflation. I'm not saying that the US is perfect because it definitely isn't, but in my opinion, for high income earners, the US is a much better deal at the moment. But right now, if you're Canadian, another reason why you might consider getting your green card is to have the option long term to either stay in the US or to go back to Canada. Whereas I like to call it, you still want to have a hedge against Canada. Now, you do have to make this decision after 7 years of getting your green card. A little bit more on that in another video. And the last point that I want to touch on is sponsorship. As a green card holder, you have the ability to sponsor your immediate family to come and live in the US. So that means your wife, husband, partner, whatever, and all of your kids that are under the age of 21. Now, just to note, parents are not included in this category. It's only immediate family members. So if you want to sponsor your parents, you actually have to become a US citizen. Now, if you are here on TN or H-1B, you can actually bring your kids and your husband, wife, or whatever with you as a dependent or as a derivative of your work visa. But if they come here as a dependent of you, their options are severely limited. I'm going to be speaking in generalities here because there definitely are exceptions, but your wife, husband, or partner can't do any work and your kids are only allowed to study. Now, this might work for a year or two, but long term, this is not an ideal situation. Now, once you get your green card, this opens up a lot of different avenues for you, in terms of sponsorship, whether they they've come with you as a dependent or they live overseas. Now, another thing I want to mention is even though you can sponsor your spouse to come with you and live in the US, there could still be a very long backlog. Now, without getting to the full nitty-gritty of my very small understanding of immigration law, green card holders file for their spouse in a different category than US citizens. So the green card holders file for under what's called the F2A category. And this category right now is backlogged for like 5 or 4 years or something like that. Now, I know a lot of my viewers are Canadian and a lot of them are young and a lot of them are probably exiting university around this time or exited university pretty recently. Which is a side note, as a Canadian living in the US, I have met a lot of other young Canadians, like, you know, similar age as me, who have long-term, long-distance girlfriends or boyfriends and have people still living in Canada, which is, you know, kind of an odd coincidence. So if you are in this situation and you're close to getting your green card, or you're thinking about getting your green card, or you're thinking about applying for your green card, I would go talk to an immigration lawyer, because if you plan to sponsor your wife or your girlfriend or whatever, there could be a lot of time saved if you do things in a certain type of way. Now, if you're asking me personally about my thoughts on the green card, I think it's a pretty tough decision. On the surface, it looks like a no-brainer. You're looking at these points, you're like, oh, Kang, like, you know, you get all this work flexibility, you can sponsor people, you know, you can live in the US long-term. Canada's kind of going down the gutter right now. You know, like, why not do it? It seems like a great idea. And if you only look at the surface level, yeah, sure, it makes a lot of sense. But in my opinion, I think there's a lot of cons and a lot of trade-offs that people don't look at necessarily when they first think about the green card or think about the process of getting the green card. Now, I'm not going to be going over my thoughts on that in this video because I definitely think that it's a longer one and it deserves its own video to do it justice. So that's actually going to be the next video I'm going to be releasing. So make sure to subscribe if you don't want to miss that one. Now, I've also been getting a lot of DMs asking for advice, asking for resume help, or, you know, just connecting to chat, which is great. And while I don't think like I'm an expert at all when it comes to any of this stuff, I do think that I have some knowledge, and, you know, people who are messaging me have knowledge as well that we could all share with each other and, you know, help each other grow. So I've been thinking about setting up some kind of Discord server or like a school community where we can like all get together and collaborate. So if that's something that interests you, please let me know down in the description. I can look to get that set up. And one other quick piece of advice, if you're watching this right now on a TN visa and you don't want to be put in secondary screening when you come back to the US, you should watch this video right here where I go over the must-know tips while you're on a TN visa.